Hi, I'm Tony Reese, and welcome to My Life Lessons Showcasing Veterans. Today, my special guest is Thomas Harkness. Tom, welcome to this project. We are so honored and privileged to have you here. So if you could take a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you served, and how long you served before we go into the project.
Okay. I served in B-29s in Saipan, then I was transferred to Guam, and I flew numerous missions out of there. Then I went bombed Japan, and then I came back. I flew into same as a hurricane, but they call them typhoons in there. I flew in about 5 typhoons, and then I volunteered to stay on the island for a typhoon, and then I was volunteered to fly with the 20th Air Force general because the other general flew into the side of the mountain on Tinian and they crashed. Everyone was killed. So he said he called up the bomb outfit and wanted a qualified navigator to fly him around the bases, the new general. So I started flying with him. So I flew him around all his bases and different things for a couple of months. And then he went up to Hawaii and report to the head Air Force for the Pacific. And he said that he had a Twix there to send a navigator to fly with the president and the senators in Washington. So this general I was flying with volunteered me to him. Then they sent me back, and then I flew several missions. I flew a mission back to Olmsted Air Force Base to fly 3 B-17s out, new B-17s out there, and then later on, I took a boat back because I'd never been on a seaboat. So they had 10,000 troops on board, and I had to go down and help. They had to paint the ship, so I had to wait so many days helping paint the ship.
Goodness.
So then I went to Washington and reported to the general there, and he said, "You have to get the hell out of Washington in 1 hour, because General May says you're the last radar man left in Washington. Everyone's been ordered out of here because you needed radar men in SAC." So then they gave me 47 bases in SAC and told me to go to anyone, and they set up a plane to fly me out in an hour. And I said, no, I had a new car I just bought the day before. I wanted to drive on it. So I volunteered to go to Fort Worth, and I've gotten the crazy things there for the Pentagon. They sent me there to fly with a mission as a navigator, bombardier, and radar on a B-29 with 2 psychiatrists. And one psychiatrist had talked to me for a couple hours, and the other guy didn't. And I was getting a rest from it. They asked me all kind of crazy questions. I told them, get the hell out of here. I was getting tired of this stuff. And then we got delayed at the bombing, and we really scared these psychiatrists to death. On the way back, we lost 2 engines over Lake Okeechobee, and that's about 200 miles out of Tampa. We were going into Tampa. We got 1,000 feet over Tampa Bay. We lost a 3rd engine. Then we landed on the runway, and as we went down the runway, we lost the 4th engine.
Oh my goodness.
And they were really having problems with that.
I would imagine.
Then we refueled there and then went back to Fort Worth. Then I had other deals at Fort Worth. I started flying B-36s above 40,000 feet. And when I did that, my teeth started to explode. And I had fillings coming off in my mouth, and that was because of the gas at 40,000 expands. And then I got sent to the dentist. I had to go to get 25 fillings taken out. So he was taking 5 out a week, and they had a new guy that came in there from Temple. He had never filled a tooth yet, just graduated in June. And he was, they were using formaldehyde they used for embalming to clean the teeth out. And he put too much in, and the next morning I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. My whole mouth was embalmed. My gums fell out white, and the top of my roof got turned white. I had to get the surgeon to cut the top of my roof out because I'd choked.
Oh my gosh.
And I was in this hospital for 2 weeks, and they fed me with a funnel, and then I got out of there, and then I was flying a new B-50D model that just came out, and I was getting in the back of the thing, and the ladder broke, and I fell down 15 feet to the cement, and I turned my both hands back over here, and I never knew what happened until I woke up in the hospital, and they tied my hands up like this for 2 weeks, and somebody had to help me eat and go to the toilet and everything.
Oh my gosh.
For about 2 or 3 weeks. Then they sent me home for a month, and later on I got into all kind of crazy stuff.
How long did you serve, Tom?
23 years.
23 years.
And I was flying as an instructor in B-29s and B-36s at that time. And later on I was an instructor. And then I got sent to 8th Air Force headquarters, and I stayed there from 49 to 57, and they even moved headquarters from when I was flying B-36s. So in 45 they moved the Westover, and I got the Westover and started flying B-52s, and I was there. I married my wife at the chapel there, and she had a baby in the hospital there, and we stayed there for 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
And then they built a new house. We got a new house. It was real nice.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah. You know, it's times like this, having these types of interviews with so many stories, that we have to revisit the stories and get more of the detail. But I'd like to go into the project with you. The number one question here is, during this whole time of service, who was your inspiration? Who inspired you, and why?
Well, the one that changed my whole life was the Commander General, 20th Air Force. He was flying from Tokyo to the Philippines, and his navigator, and they got lost. They hit the side of the mountain on Formosa, and it blew up completely. Well, then the new general came in, and he wanted to get somebody to fly with him that was qualified, so he got me up. I was in the bomb group up at Northfield in Guam, and I had to go down and fly with him. But after that, I got known in the Pentagon as being the last radar man, and they used to send down special missions for me to fly. And they sent and then they sent down another mission. I had to be assigned to the Pentagon, and I flew mission for the State Department, the White House, and Pentagon to Europe, and I had a 2-star general flying in charge of the baggage, and he brought along his secretary, a woman captain in Iraq, and she had to write everything down that happened on the plane, and we had loaded guns, and with orders to shoot anybody down they got within a mile of us, or to shoot, get shots at it, keep them away from us. And the plane was not to land anywhere in Europe. It had to be sunk if it didn't get to the place. And I had to land the plane with it plus or minus 1 minute at London.
Oh my goodness.
And they had to close down London airport to let me in because I was coming in with loaded guns and had to put our guns up in the air and land. And then I got met by the people from the embassy, and I flew with the general took me with because I worked all night navigator. And we got in there, and then we took a lot of Marines there, and took us into London with the sirens going. They had 50 caliber guns in the jeeps in front, and then other ones flying this stuff. We went right through London with all sirens going to the embassy.
Oh my gosh. Well, all that you have been through, what would you say is one of the greatest life lessons that you learned and took away from that experience in service?
Well, I got 6 silver wings at different schools I went to, and I studied nuclear weapons until the time I got out. And after I got out at 23 years, the colonel came around the next day and wanted me to enlist again to go to Vietnam. And I said, no, I had enough. I wanted to go home with my wife and my kids for a while. Yeah. But she never knew where I was going. I would just take off and get refueled all over the world for 10 years. I could tell her when I took off and when I was coming back.
So what?
When I took off, I was never allowed to have anything on me except my pistols and ammunition. They took everything off my pockets and put it in the safe till I came back, or if I would come back. And the planes, when I was flying that plane, if we dropped the bombs at any time, we wouldn't be coming back. And I had a box on the side with a signal. I had to get the signal from the president, and through SAC headquarters, I got to arm the bombs and drop them.
How did that experience impact your life after service?
Well, I was glad to get rid of the bombs when they got out.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were there lessons and things that you had gone through during all of this time in service that you then could apply to your personal life after service?
Well, when I got out, I got a job for 18 years with General Battery, directing about 50 trucks on different routes and checking the loading on them to see that we weren't overloaded and to see what load the batteries had been put on. And I used to send them down to different places like South Carolina. They had a plant there, and plants in Indiana, and around all the cities around here. I used to deliver them. I was a dispatcher for 18 years. I was retired then from General. But at the end, it was owned by Exide. Exide took it over in around 1980. But I was in there for General Battery and Exide.
So what characteristics during your time of service did you use while you were working?
Well, being a navigator, I could tell all the maps. I could use all the maps and know how to route all these trucks. I used to route all the trucks, and I knew where all the bridges were and things on the maps. And I knew how to, I could read maps real well.
I have two final questions for you, Tom. What does honor mean to you?
Well, I would like to say, I like to see that people honor and fly planes and take care, keep everything honest. Yeah.
What does freedom mean to you?
I had one scary plane flight. When we took off from Guam, I flew over Kwajalein, and the plane was on fire for 4.5 hours, and all the radios burned up. All the electric went out. Had to get one with a flashlight to help the navigator, and one to help the pilot because half his instruments went out that were electrical. And the engine, I could see it out the window all the time I was navigating. The engine on number one was burning all the time. It sprayed up with flames all the time for 4.5 hours. And the wing got blackened and it started to bend. And we landed the plane on Johnson Island. It's about 1.5 miles long and about 0.5 mile wide after 4.5 hours. And we had no way to find it except for we saw a light when I flew over there, and it was sure my navigation was pretty good. And we had to make a dive for the place because we couldn't go around it or anything. We landed on the runway, and the gas and the oil was coming out of the runway. And the wing fell down, was so weak it was burned and hanging down. They took the plane 2 days later and got a tug and put and towed it out to sea. Said it never should have been flying in the first place the way it was in.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, Tom, I have one final question for you, unfortunately, because the project is very limited. What does freedom mean to you?
Well, it means that stand up for your government and bomb if you have to.
Okay.
But I knew though too that many of flights that when if anything happened, I would never come back with those bombs. Because another thing is too, those bombs were so powerful. I think they would have blown us up too.
Tom,
because I don't think we could have escaped from them.
I can't even imagine what you went through.
Well, the bombs were there usually about 100 times more powerful than Hiroshima. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom, so much for being part of this very important project, and I can't wait to hear more stories from you in the future.
Well, we crash landed 6 times or different. Oh, I used to fly out to Shimya 12 miles from Russia, and you had to land you had to make a circle on one side of the base because if the other side you could be in Russian area.
Tom, I could sit and listen to you all day long. Thank you so much for being part of this project.
These life lessons are made possible in part by Tompkins Fist Bank, Lords and Ladies Salons, and Riverfront Federal Credit Union.